What's up, gals and pals? It's your boy Vino Valentino, and welcome back to 60-Second Cocktails. This is the YouTube PubCrawl, and ladies and gentlemen, I am honored and happy to have my buddy David Edwards from Booze on the Rocks. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause. Say hello to the audience. Say hello to the audience, David.
Hello, audience. How are you? No, actually, it's great to be here, Vino. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody joining in for Vino's pub crawl here.
I couldn't be happy to have you, brother, man. You're one of the guys that I started watching when I first started doing this, and you're also one of the first guys who was actually kind of welcomed me in and stuff like that. So I really appreciate having you on, man.
Oh,
so rule number one, what do you got there? What are you drinking, pal?
Well, I'm gonna have a little bit of bullet bourbon.
I'm gonna join you, brother. My favorite bourbon too. There we go. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, me and David are off to the right start here with a little bit of bourbon and a bullet bourbon on top of that. All right, nice.
A couple of good-sized fingers.
Beautiful. And I think I'm gonna throw a little bit of orange bitters in there just for
orange.
A little bit of orange bitters. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You should be splash. You should be doing it this way.
How's this? Show me. Oh, they're going over.
We're gonna do the proper swath. Just mostly because I need to use it, right? So.
You're making me look bad. There you go. Beautiful. Cheers, Dave.
Cheers, Vino. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is one of my favorite bourbons.
It is my favorite. Now, for you guys that don't know, last night, prior to filming this, me, Dave, and Rob did a little live stream for the Spice on the Rocks 2020 challenge. I don't know how this guy Dave is still standing because he didn't eat and he drank so much that by like halfway through the live stream, this guy was on another planet. But he chooped it through, and this is why we love him. That's why, Dave, we love you, Dave.
One foot in front of the other. Oh, wow.
You did all of the sobriety testings and passed, so you know what? I mean, that's that Canadian blood, ice cold, right there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, guys. So listen. So we are going to do my favorite new game show, the Fast Pour. Where I ask David 6 questions in 60 seconds. David, you let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I guess whenever, because I have no idea what questions you're going to ask.
All right, let's go. Ready? And begin. Favorite cocktail?
Old fashioned.
Favorite spirit?
Scotch.
Favorite hangover food?
Bacon and eggs.
All right. Let's see. The worst cocktail you've ever had?
A Negroni.
Oh, wow. And
yeah.
All right.
I'll explain later.
All right. Let's see. Bourbon or rye?
Bourbon, because I like the peppery bite.
Okay. And then your favorite YouTube channel, not called 60-Second Cocktails. It doesn't have to be a cocktail channel. It could be anything you want.
You know what? It's actually My Self-Reliance.
My Self-Reliance.
Yeah,
let's pause right there. All right, great. You have 15 seconds left on the clock. Good for you, David. So go ahead. My Self-Reliance. I don't know if I've ever heard of that one.
My Self-Reliance is about Sean James, who is Canadian, moved up north of Huntsville, bought some land, built a cabin by hand.
Ooh.
And he has nice 20 to 30 minute long videos where he does everything by hand, and he doesn't talk at all except for maybe a 5-minute bit where he speaks about just what's new, what's happening, and what's going on, and then continues. And there's beautiful glory and drone shots of the surrounding nature and pictures of nature.
That's awesome.
And just the stuff that he does by hand, and it's just relaxing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's. I saw a while ago, maybe a couple years ago, some guy, he built a cabin with his dad or for his dad. Is it that guy? And he built it completely from wood that he found in the woods.
If you're looking at that one, that is, I think, The Outsider. They're still working on the cabin together.
Okay.
Him and his father, if that's the one that you're thinking.
It could be that. Yeah, that stuff is awesome. You know, one of the things that I remember when I first saw David. David, he used to have this huge beard and stuff like that, and he's got this this lumberjack shirt here, and he's got the wood bar and everything like that, and he's Canadian. And I said, this guy is got to be like some sort of lumber guy that just does his stuff on the side, you know what I'm saying? And it turned out, he's a tech guy, so who knows? You never judge a book by its cover, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny, actually. The beard started because I wanted to just make myself look more imposing, and then COVID came along, and I couldn't get it trimmed, and then I tried to trim it on my own, and that was a mistake, and now my beard is pretty.
Now it looks good. Now it looks like a
Yeah,
nice, handsome Canadian man. So,
absolutely.
so David, let's talk about your background. We know that I know you're in operations and whatnot, but tell me about your cocktail background. Like, when did you start getting into cocktails, and what kind of made you get into the YouTube cocktail thing?
Okay. In the YouTube cocktails, you have to remember, I used to work in a bar when I was 19, and I learned that it was really, really easy to drink after work. And when you weren't working, to step on the other side of the bar and drink with your friends.
Yeah.
So I started drinking too much, and I realized after out drinking a few of my paychecks, because you can't pay rent or anything else, you should, and it happens really easy. I stopped drinking for the most part, and I got a job in a different field. And, through the ins and outs of life, 20 some odd years later, work was hard and frustrating. Lots of stuff was going on in and out of work. And I think I was a little bit depressed, frustrated and angry. So one day I sit down on YouTube, and it serves up how to make an old fashioned. And it's this guy with the arm elastics, and he's got the bow tie, and
So wait, just to interrupt you. You weren't looking for this cocktail.
No.
It just came up.
It was just one of the things that was fed up, and I went,
wow, isn't that something?
And I just, for the heck of it, I wanted to take a look at it. And it was done well, and it looked really easily. And you know what was funny? It was an old fashioned. And then I went and I looked up a bunch of other channels that did old fashions. And I went, that's pretty cool. I can do that. And then I stumbled across Common Man Cocktails. And it was one of his individual videos where it's just him, Derek. And sometimes he'll make a cocktail and he'll go over things, explain why he chose certain things. And then there was a video that just talked about, if you want to do it, go and do it. Don't let anything stop you. Try it.
He was talking about in general, or if you want to do a YouTube channel?
If you want to do a YouTube channel.
Okay, that's cool.
And he also did a breakdown of sort of what he had, including his lights and the cameras that he had.
Oh, really cool.
And I realized equipment-wise, it doesn't look that much. And I knew I had access to Adobe Premiere, so I figured, I'll take a couple of online YouTube videos, how I do this, how I do that. And I really started to enjoy it. And then I started looking up the history, and you know what? There was so much to learn, and it was fascinating. People being drunk, some of the stories people have played, and just the chance to take something and make something new. And I really started to enjoy it. And it was just, it's gone, I think, fairly well. I've had a few disastrous videos, and I've broken a few things on my.
That's the charm of your channel, though, brother. You know that.
Even during our live stream, I had swore I was not going to break anything, and I accidentally just tapped the shot glass. It literally fell over.
In your defense, that was a fluke. Right? Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I was like,
that wasn't me flipping something.
I think your wife set that one up for you. So it's interesting that Common Man Cocktails is the guys that kind of I guess influenced you to the extent that they did, because that's I consider you kind of like the Common Man Cocktail guy. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not coming from this kind of bougie kind of mixologist background. You're a guy that has some bartending experience, but the reality is you're a working man who just loves a good cocktail, and you're a cocktail enthusiast,
No, absolutely.
And it really translates well. I think that's why you come across as so likable, right? You're not trying to be too refined. You're like, you make nice cocktails, but you do it in a way that any man can. I think that's definitely.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's my goal. My goal is a cocktail for everyone. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be simple. It can be complicated depending on what you want to do and the skill sets you have and what you want to do. But I really think that the average person will say, okay, how do you make a syrup? How do you do this? How do you do that? Which I need to make a few videos on. But I got home and I just want to make a drink. I want something simple and easy. Bang, bang, bang. I can do it. And maybe you want something pretty. Because, hey, why not?
You get a pretty mouth. You want a pretty mouth sometimes in your cocktail. Listen, I come from a cocktail background, and I've worked at, incredibly prestigious high-end venues in New York City. But, the premise of my thing is 60 seconds. Like, you can make a cocktail quickly and easily. You get home, you're just chilling. Maybe you got friends over. You want to make some quick cocktails. And you don't always have to resort to like a gin and tonic. You can get something, you can make something that's got a little more complexity and make it quickly. So if I can make it in 60 seconds, you can make it in probably the same amount of time.
No, absolutely.
So I think that's the beauty of some of the cocktail channels like you and I. And of course, there's great admiration for other channels like the Kevin Costers of the world and Carl from Alchemix, who do make these more complex collects videos and cocktails. That's the beauty of our niche, man. I mean, there's a little bit for everybody. It really is.
No, absolutely. You can have the beauty of the cinema roll.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the educational narrative that Leandro from the Educated Bar Flight puts out. You can be down and straight to business like Steve the bartender, or you can be really inventive like Steve the barman.
Yeah.
And just try different things. And that's the whole thing, trying something new. Because at the end of the day, the cocktail, it's in your glass. You're going to drink it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's it. So, listen, they all end up in the same place, down your mouth, and out of the pisser. So it's like and I always say, like, the guy that initially influenced me to do a YouTube channel is Bruce from Bar Talk. I mean,
he's awesome.
Who's a fellow Canuck. That guy, he just reminds me so much of a lot of the bartenders that I knew growing up, and the kind of guys that I learned my skill set from. Just kind of these old school guys who have a million stories to do, and their idea of a cocktail is really more the company that you keep. You know what I mean? Like, you come for the cocktail, stay for the conversation, stay for the company, and that's how I like to like get into the whole cocktail thing. That's why I do this too. Interviews and conversation, cocktails. The whole thing.
Yeah.
So David, so then I guess you saw Common Man Cocktails and you said, okay, this is something I'm going to do. Did you have a vision for what you were going to do? Did you say, I'm going to try to do it this way? Or did you just kind of go into it and say, whatever happens, happens? Or did you have a goal?
When I started this, my goal was to shoot a few videos and see what response I got. And I've changed from the beginning to now. I've lightened up on some of the history and some of the pop culture stuff just because it took up too much time, I think. But, and it was a lot of work. My goal is to be successful doing this.
Yeah, obviously.
But originally, it started out as a good way to, like, a hobby, something I wanted to do for myself. I could put videos out. I had something to show for it at the end of the day. I work in a business where I have people doing the work for me. I'm a manager. So I don't have that same, I created this thing happening. And I wanted to be able to put videos up that people liked and enjoyed. And I could get interesting feedback and have some of those conversations and have a good time. Every once in a while, I have my daughter on.
Yeah.
Or one of my daughters. And they're always fun to kind of do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They're super, they're cute kids. It is. It's fun,
Nothing like me, thank goodness.
No, but I love that. I love when people involve their families, man. Georgie's done it a couple of times. I included my little daughter and stuff like that, and you obviously have. It's fun when it's a family affair, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings behind this. The YouTube thing is obviously us putting on this kind of persona. Not necessarily too far fetched. I can tell you, from me and from talking to you guys off camera, like, everyone's kind of themselves. There's a certain amount of, like, acting you do in terms of your narration and the way you kind of present yourself. But the reality is that we're all kind of ourselves, which is really cool, because it's great when we're talking off camera to know that David's kind of just David. I know, what I mean? It's not
David. What you're seeing in front of the camera is pretty much what you're.
Yeah, and I think that's the case for most guys. I mean, there's a couple guys who definitely have more of an acting spiel, but that's what makes them. Like Kevin Costner obviously does this thing, this kind of, presentation and stuff like that, which is awesome. But he's obviously not that kind of person off camera. He's obviously more laid back and relaxed, but it's acting. He's doing a great job in doing that.
Oh yeah.
And there's other guys like that too, and that's what's cool again about the niche and the way it's kind of diverse that way. That's
true. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about. First of all, you've been doing this how long?
I put my very first video up on July 15th, 2019.
2019, wow.
The time is gone. And I started doing 2 videos a week. And then somewhere in the way, I put up a third video I can't even remember why I put up a third video. I think it was a Remembrance Day piece. And then I just felt right to me to do 3 videos a week, personally. It's a lot of work, but don't get me wrong.
It is. And you've got your hands full. I mean, people don't realize how much work David puts on, behind the scenes, just his own personal life, and then the amount of video content that he does. So, big hats off to you, brother. So you've been doing this longer than this. All right. So for a lot of people that may not know this, COVID introduced a lot of new cocktail channels, including me.
Yeah.
A lot of bartenders who weren't working anymore, who decided to go, or just people in hospitality who weren't working anymore, decided to share their craft with the world. And then just a lot of people who were home and started to like mess with cocktails and like, oh, this would be fun to do on YouTube. So there's got to be, I mean, from when you started, 2 to 3 times as many cocktail channels, right?
Probably 4 times as many. If not more.
Yeah, that's freaking
the landscape
amazing.
Has changed. Now, some will.
That's what I want to ask you. How has it evolved? How has it evolved? Just in terms of the not so much the quantity of guys, but just the quality. Or the way the community interacts with each other versus when you first started?
Okay, when I first started, interestingly enough, I actually reached out to Steve the bartender, and we texted back and forth a couple of times on Facebook, and every once in a while I send him a text. He's really busy. He's got his own stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I emailed Leandro a few times, but other than that, there really wasn't much communication between the YouTubers that was present.
Yeah.
And now, almost a year later, we have a lot of the people that have started and that are sort of sticking around. We've come together in a way, and we share ideas and we talk to each other, and we give each other that little boost of confidence that you need when you're starting to flag, because
100%, 100%.
Everybody gets to a point where they're like, I don't feel like I'm being successful at this. And they all think I need to be successful right away. And I was like that. I want to have 10,000 subscribers right away. But let's be honest, in about 4 months, give or take, I'll be at 2 years. I'd like to be there, but I'm learning to enjoy. I've learned to enjoy the process more, let it happen, and enjoy the conversations that I'm having more now than I was even 3 months ago. Because we built that community. We're trying challenges, stuff that you didn't see very often. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's funny because even with me, I came into this knowing this would be difficult and knowing that it's going to be a marathon, right? That's a term that we like to use a lot in this niche as YouTubers. It's a marathon. It's a marathon. But when you come into a certain amount of growth where you see like kind of a consistent growth where it's like, oh, maybe 10 subs a week and this, that, and third, you start feeling pretty confident about the direction you're going in, and then you hit a rut. You hit a rut, and this is the first I'm hitting a rut right now. This is the first time I've hit a rut where my subs have just like almost stopped. And me, a confident person, completely confident guy with a very realistic about the way YouTube works, it gets in my head. Where you're like, man, there was something going on. Am I doing something wrong? Like, what's going on? But the beauty of the community is like, you'll get advice from someone that'll be like, whether it's a pep talk saying, hey, don't worry, it'll come back around. Or it's like, hey, why don't you try doing something like this or try something like that? Or someone who said, hey, look at this information to see if it helps. That's the kind of stuff that I think, because we have this niche that's like communicating the way it does. We have this Discord where everyone sits and talks and exchanges ideas. Man, it really helps to kind of get your motor running again. When you feel a little down on yourself, you're like, you know what? All right, I get it. I can't imagine when things were like, if that community didn't exist, how much tougher it would be to kind of get past that little rut, in your own head,
Yeah, well, the ruts come and go, and you have that video where it doesn't do very well. And it could just be the type of cocktail you've chosen is not popular. People aren't looking for it, but it was something you wanted to try. And you sit there and you look at that. Why are my views down on this video? Why is nobody subscribing? Why am I having a hard time keeping people sort of engaged and influenced with me? Just one-to-one, like we are here, or one myself to the viewer. And you ask yourself these questions. What am I doing wrong? And sometimes there are parts of the time in the year where things slow down a little bit. January and February is one of them. And however, that's where I reached out to a couple of people and said, I'm feeling this. And they said, yeah, don't worry, you're doing fine, blah, blah, blah. Just keep going and, take your time, relax, and it'll happen. And for anybody that's interested in thinking about creating a YouTube channel, it doesn't matter whether it's in cocktails or not, honestly, make the effort to do it, because you'll kick yourself if you didn't do it. right?
Mhm.
Take that chance. And you never know, you might come up with something that just, that's it. And the skies can be the limit for you.
Mhm.
Now, again, you still have to put lots of effort and work into it and dedication. And you got to listen to people. You're looking at the king of trying to walk through walls to make things happen.
Yeah, I mean it's true. I mean, being able to like put your pride to the side too, you know, and your ego leaving your ego at the door is important, because if you want to grow and improve, you have to be able to take criticism, you know, whether it's just from your commenters or it's from someone in the niche that's like, hey, you know, Vino, Dave, you know, try this, or maybe that's not working. If it's done from the right place, then you might as well listen and think about like trying and implement it, because especially when you're a smaller channel, you know, you have all the ability right now to make these changes, right? Because you haven't how do you say, established yourself the way someone like a Steve the Bartender has. If Steve the Bartender started making some sort of extreme changes to his channel, you know, he can alienate a lot of his subscribers, you know, because they're expecting something, you know. And like if he started to do a whole different type of, you know, cocktail stuff, you know what I mean? It's a fine line. It's a fine line.
No, absolutely.
I mean, I see someone like Greg from How to Drink, who has turned into more of a almost like a pop culture channel. And his videos have become much longer, you know, they're like 25, 30 minutes and stuff like that. And, you know, it's definitely an evolution from where he started, where he was more just about the cocktail and his videos were about 10 minutes and stuff like that. So, you know, that, you know, for myself, I find sometimes, you know, as much as I admire Greg and the stuff that he does, it's like, that content is too much right now for me, especially when I'm trying to keep up with all the other guys in the niche, you know?
Yeah, Greg did something very interesting. He went from, he started out doing just the cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and I looked at a bunch of his older videos, and I really like.
Mm-hmm.
I like everything he does.
Mm-hmm.
Do I get a chance to watch them all? No, I have too much.
That's the thing. I mean, everything he does is great, but it's tougher to.
His change was slow, and it wasn't slow. He had a lot less competition.
Mm-hmm.
He put in good work, and then he hit that aha video.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his Harry Potter butterbeer.
Genius video.
And that took off for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it, I believe, reinvigorated him,
mm-hmm.
and had him look in a couple of different directions. And now we see the evolution of him. He's doing. He's got 1.1 and 1.2 million.
And listen, you know, and exactly. I mean, again, I'm speaking for my own personal. It's working for him like a lot.
Oh, absolutely,
very well. But my point was like, you know, there are going to be people that are going to be like, oh, you know, I don't know if I want that from Greg, and they're going to, you know what I'm saying. And that's why now is a good time to make those changes. But, you know, obviously you could do it later on in the future too, and it still works for you. So it's like, you know, take those risks, take those changes, just learn and evolve until something works. You know, it was already working for Greg, oddly enough. You know, I just think he needed maybe the energy to keep going. You know what I mean? I think that you can burn yourself out too, you know.
Burning out is quite possible. There's a lot of work involved, a lot of effort in trying to get things right.
Mm-hmm.
It never happens the first time, especially not for me.
Yeah.
And you can see that by the fact that I've started out. For a while now, I've been doing bloopers at the end of my video because somebody might as well laugh at my expense.
Yeah.
And you know, and just see that it is something it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And I may still make mistakes in my videos, and I'm working on improving that. I'm a work in progress.
We all are, brother. We all are. So speaking of aha moments.
Yep.
What was your aha cocktail? Like the cocktail that the first cocktail you had where you like, I love cocktails, man. And I'm not talking about a gin and tonic. I'm talking about like that, like a real cocktail, something that made you go, damn, I love this stuff.
There's been a few. A good New York sour was really good. I think one of my favorite, and I like New York sour, so much so that I tried clarifying it.
Yeah.
I turned it into a video. But the Clover Club. One of the tastiest cocktails. It's highly underrated, but it's so good.
It's so pretty.
And
so pretty.
It's very pretty. And it's interesting. That's one of my greatest aha moments for a cocktail, is that I could produce something that looks that pretty. And
Mhm.
that wasn't right at the beginning of my channel. I just kept going and trying more stuff
Yeah.
and tried to get a little bit more inventive
Yeah.
over time. Uh, but I think the Clover Club is probably one of my favorite cocktail videos
Mhm.
because I really, really enjoyed that
Oh,
cocktail.
cool, cool.
Everything from its look to its taste.
Then did you have it before you did the video? Did you ever have
No,
one before that? Okay.
no, I never test the cocktails I make in advance, which is funny.
Unless you've had them already, obviously. I'm the
Yeah,
same way. I don't
unless I've
either.
had them, and where I I get subscribers to send me cocktails and viewers, and I always try them. But every cocktail I sit down and make, I look at it and kind of go, does it look popular? Yes, no. But you know what? It always comes down to I've never tried it.
Mhm.
So the reaction may be really, really positive.
Yeah.
It may not be. And
Yeah.
my tastes have evolved a lot over the last year and a half, really.
So you
Uh,
still don't like the Negroni, huh?
I'm learning to enjoy it.
Is it
Part of
Campari? Is it Campari or is it or Negronis in general?
could be a couple of things.
Specifically. All right.
When I made the Negroni the first time,
Mm-hmm.
the week before I had tried a Paloma, and I had my grapefruit soda, and so the drink's a little bit bitter. What the Negroni says is, smack, this is bitter. And I went, oh, and I just put my cocktail down and said I prefer the Paloma. Uh,
Coloma's good though. Coloma's
no,
damn
it
good.
is.
Coloma's damn good.
However, there are many things that interact that I've learned in a cocktail. One, the type of gin and the botanicals involved change its flavor, not just the olfactory senses.
Mm-hmm.
And that specific gin that I used may not have worked good with the Negroni because I've tried it with a different gin and it was much better. Now, I've had a few more Campari cocktails since then, and I've become a bit more accustomed to that bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
And I will continue working on the Negroni until I find what is its sweet spot for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And it's getting there. It's just I have one every few months, just to try it and see has anything changed. And in some cases, yes, some cases no.
No one's gonna be happier that you start to love Campari than Tim Kirkland because
Oh,
that boy
Tim loves his Campari.
Tim loves his
He loves his
Campari, man.
Campari and he loves his vodka.
He
Now
loves
that
his
I'm thinking
vodka.
about it, I should mix those two together in some way.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting how much he loves vodka, right? Because it's such a non flavor. There's nothing there, but hey, to each his own. That's why we love you, Tim. That's why we love you, Tim. I know you're watching. That's why we love you, buddy.
Well, you can make it taste like anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
We talked about you being drunk last night. But how about telling us your best drunk story? It could be you being drunk, maybe someone that was drunk. Just a drunk story that really sticks to you. That is just hysterical, man.
I don't hang around that many people that get so totally trashed anymore.
It could be an embarrassing one. It could be funny. It could be whatever.
I had many years ago, when I lived in my first house. I lived on a street, and there were a bunch of guys literally that lived around me that were from Newfoundland. And all you'd hear is that as they open a beer, and everybody would show up. So I'm over there having some beers, and they're passing the joints around. Joint beer, 12 beers later, and a couple of probably half a dozen joints. I know I shouldn't be saying that, but however,
are you saying joints? I mean, it's not much there.
Marijuana. Oh yeah, it's marijuana. So and they had this tendency, a couple of guys, to cut their stuff with tobacco.
Okay.
So I was in the middle of drinking my last beer, and I know when that level is where, whoa, you've hit it, and now you're surpassed it. It's just put it down. It's like I knew yesterday at the shot of Jameson.
Yeah.
However, I drank something else afterwards. I was already going downhill very fast at that point, which I knew. So I put my beer down and said, I have to go. And everybody looked at me funny. You okay, Dave? Yeah, I got to go right now. I got into the garage because that's where everybody was drinking, in the garage. I walked across the street to where I live. Actually, it was my next door neighbor's lawn. I decorated his lawn. Made it into my house up the front steps. The bathroom's right there. And of course, I proceed to.
Decorate the bathroom.
Well, no. I talked on the porcelain telephone, as I like to call it.
Oh man, the porcelain
And
gods. You prayed to the porcelain
I prayed to
gods.
the porcelain god. And it was so bad. My wife, who walked down the stairs, could smell the booze. And here I am. I'm laying on the floor trying to get a glass of water in the bathroom sink, and my hands are up here on the pedestal sink, and I'm like running water, and I'm trying to drink it. I'm literally pouring it on my face, trying to. Oh, it's embarrassing. That's one of those things that said I'm gonna cut back on that because I don't generally drink a lot, right? It's just usually socially with friends.
It's always worse though when it's your wife taking care of you too, though, right? Like it's different when. It's different when you're just like a guy, like going home to, alone, and you're like just laying in your bed or whatever. But when your wife has to take care, I had that story. I remember I came home one day and I don't know, I got so drunk. I drank like a whole bottle of wine by myself, had nothing to eat, kind of like you.
Mm-hmm.
I get home and the world is just spinning and I can't stop it. So I end up going into the bathtub and sitting in the bathtub in my undies, just vomiting. I couldn't get my head straight.
Yep.
Then there's my wife kind of like just petting my head and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I must be.
My wife just made sure I made it up the stairs, gave me a bucket and said, "You're sleeping right there," which on the side of the bed, of course. And don't make a mess. My wife's sweet, but
yeah. Thank God for wives, right? Can't live with them. Can't live with them. So David, so one of the things David does that is just kind of become kind of his like marquee thing is he makes something with an egg white. He'll make something with an egg white, and then the yolk is left over. And he'll take a shot of the egg yolk. He'll take the egg yolk with a shot like 151, which has kind of become the thing. It started with just anything at one point. When did that start? Do you remember the cocktail?
No.
You don't, huh?
Might have been the kiwi sour.
Was it the kiwi sour?
It might have been. No, it may not have been. It might have been before that. You would think I would know that because I didn't have the stuff down on my bar at the time to attempt a prairie oyster. So I figured I'm not going to throw it out because it's just going to make a mess. So I figured I'll just slam it back. Come on, it's not going to kill me. And I'll just chase it with a bit of booze. So I reach at random. Usually now I seem to reach for the 151 like a fool. However,
if you don't do the 151, people are going to be disappointed. You can't do anything else at this point.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting. I had one of my viewers comment that, Dave, don't you think the E. coli is a little thing, and that by doing that you're encouraging that? I said, you're right. It is true. But however, I recently came up with the saying, I laugh at E. coli. Yeah. And I should turn it into a church, right? A church. Good idea, Dad.
Oh, the church too? The church of E. coli?
No, the shirt. And I've just sort of kept up with it mostly. I think I didn't do it once, and a couple of people commented.
I remember there was one time you didn't do it. Yeah, I remember that time.
And everybody commented, why didn't you drink the yolk?
See, now you set the precedence, man.
I set the precedent, so I have to do it. I maybe should chase it with something that's not quite 151, but I think everybody likes seeing the reaction on my face.
It's more fun that way. I used to drink Bacardi 151 back in college. I remember me and my buddies, whenever we would. So what we would do though is, and this goes to show you the pain that David goes through for you guys. We used to punish each other with 151. So whenever you said something stupid or did something stupid, or you didn't like if there was a dare and you didn't follow through on it, 151 was your punishment. You had to take a shot on 151. So the fact that you're doing it for the fun of it, or well, I guess it ain't fun, but you're doing it for the audience.
So I'm doing it for the audience. I'm not doing it for me. That's for sure. It's useful in some cocktails. That's for sure. And would I do it normally if it wasn't for me? Not a chance.
But listen, but last night we came up with that flip, man. You've got to do that. I mean, how was it?
Surprisingly good. And I think that's part of what started sending me downhill fast, because I'd already had some vodka at that point with Peter's wasabi cocktail, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
But, that's a simple 1 ounce of 151, 1 ounce of spiced rum, 1 ounce of port, an ounce of maple syrup because I'm Canadian, 1 ounce of lemon juice, a whole egg. Yeah, shake the crap out of it, fine strain it, garnish it with some nutmeg. And for those of you that might be new to watching Vino's channel,
tell them.
call nutmeg bartender's cocaine. It's just it's one of those things. It's funny because
that's another T-shirt. That's actually a product line there, bro. You can your nutmeg, a little artisanal nutmeg product.
You're right. Probably that'd be
bartender's cocaine.
Idea. Yeah.
But he did it because we figured he's always in the egg yolk, and the flip is a whole egg. So I mean, it made a lot of sense to create a cocktail out of it, and it turned out to be not that bad.
It did actually, and I will make a video of it. I'm not sure when.
I think you really should. I think that'd be hysterical.
Okay, I'll make a video of it. You guys have my word.
So David, you obviously been around. Like I said earlier, you've been doing this a little longer than most of us. So you've obviously seen some channels come and go, right?
Yeah.
Anyone in particular that you're like, oh, that guy's pretty good, I was sweaty to stick around?
I would like to say small screen. No, Drinks Made Easy, but because of the present circumstances, he hasn't been able to film with his partner, and that's so different. I like his stuff, and I really wish it was more.
He's done a couple recently, but he's inconsistent.
Has come and gone. They don't do cocktails anymore, I don't believe. There are a couple of others. TK's bar I thought was gone, but it turns out she was just on hiatus. Well,
she just dropped one recently.
Yep, she just came back with a new video, which is great. And
was there Better Drinks at Home? I think it was another guy that kind of came and went. Is it?
Him and somebody he worked with on his videos. They've kind of, I don't know if they've just slacked off because of what's going on or anything. It's just, but they had some interesting things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's sorry. Like you said, we say it's a marathon. It's a lot of work. It's a full-time job. And, if you expect to get rich off of this anytime soon, it's just not realistic at all.
And you know what? Your life could change. Your life's changed. Things happen. You have babies. You have financial issues. You change jobs, have to change locations.
Yep.
Things change that interrupt what you were doing and maybe the free time that you had.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happened to some of it. Some people didn't get the response that they thought they had, and that could be for a number of reasons, like saturation in the market and stuff. So
yeah, man, and that's what we definitely have now. We definitely have saturation. There's no question about it, which is good and bad. I mean, it's good because I think it continues to put the cocktail niche on the map on YouTube, whereas it was a lot smaller before, and definitely overshadowed by like the cooking channels and stuff like that. So the presence is getting bigger, and I think that's good. It's great, and there's some good talent out there. I mean, we got some new guys that are really awesome. Like, again, very different, but it's also gonna slow the growth also of a lot of them because you are competing for subs and time, right? So the subs are free, but the time is not, right? So there's people's time is what it is. So you might get the subs, but getting the time, the view time and stuff like that could be a lot tougher. I think that's gonna be the tougher part. Less the subs and more the time.
I remember when I was very new, and you saw maybe one or two subscribers in a week. And I was like, where is everybody? And there was much less competition out there for your viewing time. However, I do believe if you make it and you do a good job at it, or the best job that you can, and you allow your personality to come out. When I first started, I was very, very wooden. I tried to be very scripted and have this is what I'm going to say, and this is what I'm going to do. And be yourself. Best advice I can give you. And go out and make it. And you know what? It will show up. The other thing people have to remember, there's like tons and tons of videos being uploaded to YouTube now. Every hour, every minute.
I know.
And however, YouTube is not going anywhere for a very long time.
But more people are watching YouTube also. I mean, it's become a huge destination for people to, not at their home and stuff like that. So, those kind of things will change once people get back to work. But I think that they will still be part of people's lives when they're going to make time for it. You commit. One thing you do a lot. I know myself. You commit sometimes to the person. Like you really like the guy or the girl. Or the group. Yeah. And you're like, I'm going to keep watching them, even if I don't have the same time I had before. I'm going to continue to commit to them in whatever capacity that I can.
You've built that relationship with that individual.
Yeah. That's why when you said right now about the whole like be yourself thing, like that's what's going to help you click or not with the audience.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I know that I've changed a little bit since I started,
Mm-hmm.
and that may have alienated some people. I
Mm-hmm.
think I've gained some people because I'm more myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know, and I try and deliver a good cocktail, some good history if I can,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, just try and do it in an enjoyable way. Am I
Yeah.
good at telling jokes?
Mm-hmm.
No, I never have been good in my entire life,
Mm-hmm.
although I try.
Mm-hmm.
um,
But
you
you have
know,
a natural kind of comedy to you too, you know, in your kind of almost innocence, like you don't even mean to be funny and you are, you know what I mean? It's like accidentally funny. So that I think
yeah,
sometimes that's actually more appealing because like this guy's not even trying. You know what I mean? Look how
yeah.
funny he is. I think that's huge. Have your daughter shown any interest in YouTube or anything like that? I mean, or what you're doing?
My middle daughter, who's been on the channel a few times, Erin,
Yeah.
she enjoys coming on and doing
That's
videos.
the blonde one, is it? Right?
All her hair colors changed.
Oh,
They're
okay.
about the same height. Their hair. Erin's been on more videos. My other daughter, Adrian, has only been on one because she lives 3 hours away
Yeah,
from
I
me.
think that's the one I'm thinking of, the one that's been on a couple times.
Yeah. So Erin, yes, she has really enjoyed spending time with me, and I think my youngest daughter, once she gets a little older, wants to
Mm-hmm.
be on. I'm in a few episodes with me too,
Yes, cool,
and
cool.
what I hope um, is that you don't have to get stuck in work. You can have a hobby. It doesn't have to be cocktails,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know. But if there's something that you think would be interested in worth sharing, go for it. You know, you
Yeah, I
never
mean,
know. They could pull a Justin Bieber and suddenly become a world famous singer.
yeah.
I'm
Look, the
sorry.
reality.
I know. I'm sorry. I said Justin Bieber.
It's all right. You're a dad. It's okay. So obviously, look, you were a bartender for a very short time back in the days, and then you took this, gap to go to the, regular world, corporate
Yeah.
world. Now you've been doing this for a few years now. So you've obviously learned a lot. I can hear when we
Yeah.
talk off camera, on camera, you definitely have a good knowledge base. But is there a blind spot for you? Is there something that you wish you knew a little more of, whether it's technique or certain type of spirits or like a cocktail family that's not really something that you're too wise on? Like what's something that you wish you knew a little bit
There's still
more, you'd like
so
to
much.
get into?
I would love to learn more about whiskey, Scotch,
Hmm.
bourbon.
Hmm. It's funny. That seems to be the common answer is
I
Scotch,
like
Scotch
that.
specifically.
Well, it's just because it's so different.
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge fan of peated scotches.
Hmm.
And I think the very first scotch I drank ever,
Hmm.
it was a made for export out of Canada. It had an Ontario flag slapped on it, even said made for export. And it was terrible. Or at least I thought it was terrible. However, I drank it because I paid for it. Uh, but I'm starting to like the idea of different types of gin, and we
Hmm.
have a lot of local distilleries in Ontario. There's a lot all over the world.
Yeah.
And what I really want to get into is just the oddball liqueurs, the stuff that's harder to find.
Yeah.
The selection where I live is limited,
Hmm.
and it's state run or province run. So what they have listed is what they have listed, and you don't have a chance of getting that.
Hmm.
But there is stuff that I would like to get my hands on to try to put into cocktails and just to experiment with. And I like cocktails from different places. I've done a couple, like the Dom Pedro was really really good.
Yeah.
That's South African cocktail. Ooh, I like the Brazilian cocktails.
Yeah, that one was really cool. As a matter of fact, I remember that. That was almost that milky one, right? Like it looked
Yeah,
kind of milky and white. That looked pretty cool.
it was that's like an alcoholic milkshake, and
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
was terribly chastised by some people from South Africa
Oh,
saying,
really?
yeah,
Nice.
you should have used whiskey instead. And one person even suggested, you know what, you shouldn't have put your chocolate syrup in the glass. And then they argued because I said the word, it is arguably South African. And I said, no, it's not arguably, it's South African. But you know what? Stuff from different places I like. I'm a huge person that loves foreign film.
Hmm.
I love foreign movies. I love foreign TV shows, especially murder mysteries and those thrillers.
Interesting. All right, cool.
And for me, subtitle at the bottom all you want, and I listen to it in the original language. But I like this is the homeboy that wants to get out and explore, but I can't do it because I'm stuck at home working all the time, and
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really working all the time now.
Now you are, my friend.
Oh yeah, so it's more of the worldwide cocktails, the different things. What does Arkansas like? What does California like? What does Brazil, Chile like? What might Nepal like?
Mhm.
And eventually I'm gonna try and find stuff. It's just time, money, effort.
Yeah. I mean, the thing when you do stuff like that though is you're gonna enter, that kind of that situation where you're gonna need something that you can't find,
Oh,
in
yeah.
Canada. So that's where it does get a little tough. Especially with you guys in Canada where everything's so controlled and stuff. Me being in New York City, there's very little I can't get. Some things might be harder to find, but you can get it. With you guys having this so much control over what can be brought in and out and stuff like that. But probably for the most part, you can pull off a lot of foreign cocktails if you really want to.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I just have to learn what can I use to substitute.
Yeah. That's actually true.
As much as I want the original type of liqueur or base spirit, if you can substitute and it gives you a very close approximation, it's still worth trying to pull it off. At least that way, if I ever go to one of those countries and I say, "Hey, I'd like one of these," and I get a drink, it'll be pretty similar to what I've made, right?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I love to travel. So for me, the one thing I love to do is to get the cocktail that's like the native to that country, right? Because it is fun to see what it is. Sometimes, it's nothing too impressive, but sometimes it's like, look at like the caipirinha, I mean, that's like, that's my favorite summer cocktail. So, and
easily one of my favorites.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It's so fantastic. So, it's always cool to know that there's other countries out there that are producing spirits and cocktails that could potentially be the best thing you ever drank if you got exposed to it,
Oh, no, absolutely. I would love to maybe one day start up a whiskey business.
Whiskey, yeah.
I would love to. And I don't drink a lot of whiskey. I drink a little bit here and there, and I really try and enjoy it. But I like the process that it goes through, the aging that it goes through, and there's so much you have to learn, no matter what you're trying to create. There was a gentleman in Alberta that a friend of mine, his father, attempted making an Alberta rose liqueur. Apparently it was quite good, but he ran into some difficulties keeping the consistency just right. And things you have to learn, right?
So. It's actually a question I got. It's a good question. So, Rob from Rob's Home Bar is a huge whiskey guy. And he loves his peat and he loves all that smoky stuff. It seems to be that Canada doesn't have great whiskey production to the level of like places like Kentucky or Scotland or even Ireland for that matter. Why do you think that is? I mean,
I'm going to argue with you on that one.
Yeah, I'm only speaking from like what I'm hearing from other people because I don't drink Canadian whiskey, not because I don't like it, but because I'm a big bourbon guy. I mostly just drink bourbon.
Yeah. So we have a lot of really good whiskeys. So for example, Alberta Premium just won a 2021 medal in their whiskey. Canadian whiskey by itself has a much higher rye content.
Yeah, I would say it's much more rye-like.
Yeah. It's the first country to actually put a minimum age on aging before anybody else. So now, what is different about Canadian whiskeys versus American whiskeys is you can add up to 7 or 9% of a colorant or additive, where in the US you cannot, but in Scotland and Scotch you can, and in many places you can. There's a lot of different types of Canadian whiskey, and what you'll see most often if you walk into one of our liquor stores is a lot of small brands trying to compete with the big brands, of course. And I really like the small brand stuff that's unique and trying something different. And I really, really enjoy that. I have a bottle here that I desperately want to try. Now, I want to do some reviews on the channel. I just don't know what I'm going to fit them in because it's different than doing a cocktail.
Yeah.
However, it's just.
I think that's definitely feels like a bit of a lost opportunity in this niche. I don't feel like there's many reviews of brands. I don't think we see that very often. I mean, I know I think it's Let's Talk Drinks, the guy in Australia. He'll sit down and talk about some spirits and stuff like that. But you don't see it.
George.
Yeah, George. Yeah, you don't see too much of it. Which is probably, a missed opportunity. I think it'd be, especially for like yourself, like you're getting Canadian brands and stuff like that are kind of unique to your province and stuff like that. I like to see stuff like that because I'm interested, again, like you said, in what the small guys are doing and the kind of like, you know, the care that they take in their production and how it influences the spirit.
The one of the best channels is down out of Texas, the Whiskey Tribe.
Oh, they're awesome.
They're so much fun and have done such a great job.
That's a great channel.
I watched one of their videos where they had Brian from Rogue.
From the Modern Rogue.
Yes, Modern Rogue. That's right.
Another great channel.
They were explaining why they have 2,000 bottles locked in a vault. And he goes through the different sections, and then they come to the Canadian section and say, yeah, it's those crafty Canadians getting around the rules and the laws by doing different things to their whiskeys and brands. And it was interesting that they said it in that way and then moved on and continued on. I would love to. There is the first part of that is cost.
Yeah, of course.
Because the cost of going out and buying bottle after bottle after bottle after bottle. For me, right now, what I'm doing is I'm buying what I can use through multiple cocktails rather than just, I'm going to do a review of this whiskey. I really like this whiskey. How many cocktails am I going to make?
Exactly. Because you're ultimately a cocktail channel, you know, you want to be using this stuff.
Oh, you know what? I would love to be that and so much more. And I have ideas on occasion. I have no time right now to do even half of what I want to do.
Yeah, well, that actually leads me to my next question, David. What is the hope for the future of Booze on the Rocks? I mean, again, we obviously, all of us get into this because we love cocktails, because we want to monetize and we want to eventually be able to live off of this idea, this brand. But what does that mean for you? Like, what is it that, what does Booze on the Rocks become in a perfect world for you?
Oh, in a perfect world? I'd like people to be able to find me on YouTube, but also go online and look for a cocktail and say, you know what, I'm going to look at Booze on the Rocks. Go to the website, which is under development again. Yeah, because we're just, I'm struggling coming across something that I think really works for everybody, and it's probably more my my expectations. I should be able to go and find this, and do this. And my wife, I love her. She's right above me. Looking at the website actually right now as we speak, because she's more technically savvy than I am. I may work for a telecommunications company, but truth be told, if you left me with just enough lights and enough books and a drink, I'd be happy camper. Yeah, right? Yeah. So I'm stuck in probably the 1980s land. Pre-cell phone, that's because I have to have one attached to me all the time.
You're still using AOL to
No, I never used AOL. I didn't like that. I'm sorry.
You were a Netscape guy, huh?
Yeah.
What was this? You had Netscape, you had AOL, and you had what was the other one?
There were a few. Now there's like Pale Moon. There's a whole bunch of different ones that are pretty interesting, but
yeah. So basically, you want to become a resource for cocktails, just recipes and stuff like that.
Yeah, cocktail recipes, brand information. I'd like to do all of that, and all of that takes time.
Yeah. Is there like something you see out there that's kind of similar to what you want to do, like liquor.com or Difference Guide
there's
or something like
that? There's Difference Guides, yes. There's Mr. Boston Drinks, and there's a few other little blog-like ones.
Yeah.
That's just sort of the recipe. Maybe somebody's put up a review of the recipe. But I'd like to be a little bit more than that, right? I would like for a brand in time to be able to say, hey, you know what? I think I'd like David to try one of my stuff. That would be awesome.
Oh, cool.
Slowly bring down the cost of what it takes to do this.
Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of money doing that. I'd like a second camera as well.
Yeah. However, let's do a GoFundMe for David Booze on the Rocks, guys. Start it up. Somebody start that up for David.
But I want to become that resource, a trusted resource, and I want it to continue being fun and enjoyable. I'd still like to be doing this 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
I have hopefully my hair won't all be white, but it's creeping up in the beard pretty quick. Have a website that is a thriving business and more than just information, like the information, be able to supply stuff. And I'd like to maybe change the landscape of cocktails and just how we access the information and stuff like that.
Interesting. Right? What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, I can go just take a look at a cocktail. I can talk about why these 10 cocktails are great, but maybe what we don't see a lot of except for I think Imbibe does it, and they talk a lot about the history, so I kind of shy away from that, is talk about those things that why a cocktail of a specific type is good, the ratios of them, what you can change, what you can't change, a spot where people can maybe create, submit their own stuff, and then have other people review it, right? And just the ability to play, we have access to doing so much more now than maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Cocktails, it doesn't have to be neon 1980s sex named cocktails anymore.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I like them all. They're lots of fun and they're really easy to get drunk to. But you can do subtle, you can do medium, and then you can do, wow, I'm just going to fall over drunk after one or two of these.
So two things before we start wrapping things up. Number one, do you think like an app is something that you'd like to do too at some point? That's what I'm, because when I'm thinking of when I'm listening to you talk, and you're talking about so many years down the line, like how we act and how we access our information, that's constantly changing, constantly evolving. No, obviously, everything we do now is almost 90%. I don't know, I can't speak, 75%, whatever. So much of how we access our information is through an app or through our phones. So that's obviously something I think would probably be part of your future plans and stuff like that,
Oh yeah, maybe put a book out eventually on cocktails.
Yeah, and I was going to say maybe a book or something like that.
Right now I've been looking at the idea of trying to reprint some of the older cocktail books, the stuff that's very hard to find.
Yeah,
they're either expensive or they talk in language and measurements that we don't use anymore. Like what's a jigger or what's a pony glass, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, if you the Jerry Thomas book, when you read that thing, I mean, it takes I remember when I first started reading, I'm like, what? And I had to like look up on the internet what exactly this means, because there's certain terminology he was using that didn't make any sense to me.
And you have to be careful because the term has changed a couple of times in measures. A pony glass, which we call 2 ounces approximately now, used to be sometimes 2.5 or 1 ounce, depending on the type of glass a bartender was using. So I might think about reprinting an older one and just turn it into modern measurements so that
that's cool. I like that. That's actually a great idea.
And I think I can maybe get one together, assuming I can put together enough time.
Yeah, because I think even something like the Jerry Thomas book is public domain. I don't think it's even.
It's just a lot of work. That's 300 pages worth of work.
Yeah.
Plus, then you have to go through all the measurements and.
But then you do an abridged version or something, or just pick out the better cocktails and stuff. Because the reality is, like, if you can find some of the more original, popular cocktails that are in these books, and they kind of pull those out and stuff like that. So speaking of original cocktails and stuff, I guess my last question is, like, you've obviously now been doing this for a little bit of time, and you've gotten pretty savvy with the whole, how to produce, make cocktails and stuff like that from a recipe. Is exploring, more original cocktails, more original stuff something you'd like to do too, or are you just kind of comfortable, with sitting behind a recipe?
Okay, there's a bit of comfort level staying behind the recipe, and I think everybody feels that way. It's one of the reasons why I explore with my Margarita Mondays, which I do every other Monday, is I might look at a recipe, or I take your basic margarita, and of course I'll do regular margaritas that aren't already there, and try something new with them. I understand the basics of a margarita, so when I try different things with it, most of the time I'm very successful with it. Sometimes people are really, really interested in, and sours. I like sours. I like big foamy sours. I'd love to figure out how to.
I love sours. My favorite family of cocktails.
Yeah, apparently it's interesting that using the egg white is very prevalent in North America, but not so much.
Not so much in Russia. I was talking to I can't remember who I was talking to about this, where I said, "Oh, it's Tyler," because he wants to do. I think he wanted to do a Boston sour and stuff. I said, basically, what we're drinking now is a Boston sour, because the way Americans do it, we put this egg yolk in it. Yeah, and that's the Boston sour.
The egg white, it is absolutely, and I like them. I like that they smooth things out, but I'd like to
add a little creamy texture to it.
Yeah, and take a few well-made cocktails that maybe have been around for a while, and try it and see what adjustments I might have to make, because there's a lot of cocktails that you can use as a base cocktail, like the margarita, or the gin and tonic, or
old fashioned. A lot of those guys kind of there's that like branch of.
But you can have too many variations of something too.
Oh, 100%.
I've seen that some stuff. but you know what? It's always worth trying. Not everybody's going to like everything.
No.
Right?
I mean, it's the beauty of mixology and bartending and cocktail making is just the fact that, you know, there's so many, you know, you have your original cocktails and you have your variations and you have variations of the variation and it just goes on and on. And, you know, there's always that question like, oh, aren't you going to run out of cocktails to make at some point? I'm like, no, because you
I
can.
have lots of recipes.
There's a million. If you just go off of original recipes, there's thousands of them. Then you go ahead and do the variation. If I told you this guy on YouTube, David, you know, Edwards makes a new margarita every other weekend, every other Monday, you'd probably be like, how's he doing that? There's only one margarita. I'm like, no, that's the base formula for a margarita. But then you go.
I've been tinkering with around 60 recipes. So
Wow.
I have enough to do margaritas for another year, maybe 2 years.
Wow.
Every other Monday, as long as my viewers don't get bored with them. If they get bored with them, then I'll have to obviously change.
What made you choose the margarita as the cocktail? Was it just because it rang off, you know, it had a nice ring to it, Margarita Mondays, or
pretty much.
Yeah.
It could have been like Martini
it's sometimes
Monday.
it's that simple, right?
And that's all it was. I didn't think anybody was doing a Margarita Monday that I could think of. And Martini Monday didn't seem to work for me because there's a lot of things that are called martinis, but they're not. But I can come up with an awful lot of versions of margaritas.
Yeah.
And
martinis aren't as fun as margaritas too. I mean, that's the reality of it. Yeah.
No, let's be honest. A margarita, you can sit down with a bunch of your friends on a hot or a cold day, buy a pool, whatever, with a margarita, and you guys can just have a great time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And throw something at it and just see if it works. Really. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, with David, man, listen, thank you so much, brother. Let everybody know where they could find you on the interwebs.
Well, thank you very much, Vino. Thank you for having me on. You can find me in YouTube at youtube.com/e/booze on the rocks, or just search YouTube for Booze on the Rocks. You can find me online at boozeontherocks.com. And you can also find me on Instagram, although I don't post as often as I should. I have a few on Reddit, Pinterest, and I have a Facebook page for Booze on the Rocks as well.
That's awesome, David. A pleasure always talking to you, man.
You too, Vino. Thank you.
You're one of my favorites in the niche, man, and I mean that. You really are a stand-up cat, and you're a funny guy, and you're just, you know, one of those guys that's always good to talk to, brother. So, folks, make sure you check out David's channel, check out his videos, make sure you subscribe. A good guy, great videos, and remember, when life gives you lemons,
make it sour.
You make it sour. There you go. Make yourself a sour. All right, guys. Ciao.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You got it, brother.